Good evening. It's great to see all of you tonight. What a nice crowd. Just right, in fact. My name is Beatrice Haynes, and I'm a Victory Noll sister. So I want to welcome all of you here in the name of all of the sisters here at Victory Noll. And a special welcome to our three candidates. And they're sitting up here in alphabetical order. Larry Buzzard, Johnnie Hiles, and Richard Strick. Thank you so much for participating in the forum. And I want to introduce someone that I think probably you all know, Jeremy Nix, who will be our moderator this evening. And before turning the mic over to Jeremy, I just want to make a couple comments. One is turn off your cell phones if you haven't done that. And the other thing is that we are videotaping the forum tonight, and it will be available on our website, which is olvm.org, olvm.org, and other social media. So it will be available as soon as we can make it available, okay? So again, welcome. We're so happy you're here, and I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
Good evening. Just a couple of notes about tonight's format, which is a format that the candidates have agreed to as well. We're scheduled to last for an hour and a half. Each candidate will have an opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement, and then they will be asked a series of questions. Approximately the first half of those questions they have received in advance, and so they've had an opportunity to prepare their answers to them. Each of their responses will be limited to 2 minutes. So they've agreed not to be offended if I start to talk over them and cut them off. And to the candidates, it's a 2-minute limit. That's not a 2-minute goal. So if you finish your answer before 2 minutes, feel free to stop and we'll move on. As you saw when you walked in, there are some slips of paper for all of you to ask your own questions of the candidates, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. We do plan on taking a short break at 7:15, so about that halfway point, and then we'll begin to ask your questions at that point. Okay, well, what we'll do is we're going to give each candidate an opportunity to answer the question first. And so we'll just go in alphabetical order, but we're going to begin with your opening statement. So, Mr. Buzzard.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to thank the Sisters of Victory Noll for having us, and Jeremy for emceeing this event. It's great to see so many in attendance. I just want to tell you my name's Larry Buzzard, and I'm running for the mayor of the city of Huntington. I've lived in Huntington my entire life. Married to Risa Pyle Buzzard. And we have a son, Joel. He's married to Ashley, and we have grandsons, Rhett and Luke. We share our home with our 2 hound dogs, Bo and Louie. And my wife and I are lifelong residents of Huntington County. I would just want to say that my great-great-great-grandfather was actually a county commissioner in Huntington County in 1876. My wife's great-great-grandfather was Miami Chief LaFontaine. I wonder what they thought of each other. You know, probably rolling in their graves right now. But we're not just from Huntington, we are of Huntington. I'm a lifelong Republican, I'm a conservative, and I'm Catholic, and I'm a member of St. Mary's Catholic Church. I've been involved in local government since I first ran for city council back in 1996. I've served on city council, county council, and for the past 7 years I've served as commissioner. I'm concerned about our city's future and specifically our financial condition, and that'll be my main focus as mayor for the next 4 years. I'll say that I love local government, and I've been involved for a long time. It's become a passion, and I want to transfer that passion into serving as mayor for the next 4 years. I've got ideas on how to improve the city. I believe I'm the best candidate for the job with my experience, and I have a good grasp of how government works, what I believe needs to be addressed, and I have the ability to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buzzard. Ms. Hiles?
Hi, I would like to thank everyone for coming out today. Of course, my name is Johnnie Hiles. I have lived in Huntington most of my life. I am married to Tony. I have a daughter, Cassie Minnick, a son, Aaron Hiles, a grandson, Caden, and Milo, our four-legged family member. I'm currently employed as an addiction counselor with CMS, and I sub for Pathfinder Services here in town. I'm going to school to obtain my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've organized several fundraisers throughout the community, from cancer patients to helping somebody get to a dance competition. I'm involved with the Big Brothers Big Sisters, Relay for Life, Suicide Prevention Task Force, Child Abuse Awareness, Special Olympics, and I help out at the New Life Church of Ministry. I'm running for mayor as an independent. I am not a politician or a political speaker, as you can tell, but I'm trying to bear with me here. I believe the future of the Huntington City should not be based on political parties or political agendas. We need to focus on the city's outstanding debt, the unnecessary spending, outsourcing of city services, our youth and family, bring industries back and jobs into the community, and make it an all-inclusive community. I believe in having an open-door policy, genuinely listening and caring for the community, and bringing family and youth projects and working with the citizens, not against them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strick?
Well, good evening. My name is Richard Strick, and I want to thank you all. I echo the thank yous that have already been given for coming out this evening. There's lots of things you could be doing with a beautiful evening like this. How about weather for October like this? Mr. Nix, thank you as well, and to the sisters. And also want to thank Mr. Buzzard and Mrs. Hiles for being here as well, along with your supporters. I want to serve as our next mayor because our city needs leadership that is ready to help us adapt to the changes of a global economy. And that means being a city where young people see an opportunity to raise a family here, alongside of the older neighbors that have always made this place their home. The money I pay as a resident in my taxes needs spent wisely. If it's not spent on city services, you're not doing me any favors. We need to address the critical issues in our community. We need to make sure that we are taking care of paving and roads, we're taking care of pipes and sewers, and we're taking care of public safety and public spaces. We need to address decaying buildings in our downtown area that overshadow our future because of our past. The buildings that the city oversees and is responsible for need to have regular maintenance schedules upon them to make sure that we're taking care of both our historic and our modern assets. We need to keep them up. City Hall works for the people of Huntington, not the other way around. And I'm a leader with a track record of helping people in this community, building partnerships and getting results. I believe in Huntington. I believe in public service, not politics as usual.
Thank you. The first question then, and this will be for Ms. Hiles. What is your vision for the city of Huntington? And just to be clear, all three candidates are going to answer the same question just in succession. But Ms. Hiles, you're first.
Okay. My vision of the city of Huntington is that we need a fresh start, patience and understanding to begin the steps to change and ensure a brighter future. The citizens are our most valuable asset to attract industry, reduce the amount of people moving out of the community, and we need to start attracting individuals of different ages, backgrounds, and cultures. We have great schools, libraries, solid police and fire departments. Now we need to pursue and achieve public trust and residential participation to make the best ideas and commitment to a common goal. We need to increase affordable housing, fill commercial space, have an open door policy and open communication. We need to interact with nearby cities and follow their examples, ensuring that our city has resources. We need to meet its obligations. It is critical that we focus on the budget, stop this unnecessary spending, address and begin to resolve the overwhelming opioid addiction we are facing. One person cannot do this alone. It will take a whole community to come together to make Huntington a place that you can call home.
Thank you. Mr. Strick?
When I think about a vision for Huntington, I see a Huntington that is adapting to the challenges that face a small city in a global economy. And if the last decade has taught our nation anything, but especially this community, it's that emphasizing local control and local growth in our economy is key to keeping good-paying jobs here. I see us becoming a city where people of all ages and abilities are happy to call this place home because they're valued here and they're listened to about the problems that are too big for them to face on their own. I also see us preparing for the jobs of the future by handling our infrastructure needs today. We're often concerned about passing debt onto our children, but I'm just as concerned about passing on infrastructure problems that are our responsibility. They will have problems of their own to deal with. We don't need to pass them ours. Imagine your children and grandchildren growing up knowing that this place that we made together helped you love and raise them well. Imagine them knowing they had opportunities here waiting for them as they started to raise families of their own. That's what I see Huntington becoming.
Thank you. Mr. Buzzard?
Yes, my vision for the city of Huntington for the next 4 years, like I said, I want to work on lowering the tax rate. Lowering that tax rate will make us more competitive to attract industry and residents. We have one of the highest tax rates, the city has one of the highest tax rates in the state, and it inhibits our ability to grow economically or residentially. I want to rebuild our city streets, parks, and utilities. A lot of the work there has been outsourced and contracted out. I want to take that back in-house. That would help lower cost and leverage our purchasing power to get those projects done. I want to incentivize and gentrify our neighborhoods to attract young families and encourage home ownership. We've got a new industrial park on Industrial River Fork Park West. I want to work on developing that with our TIF monies and tax dollars there. I will pursue cooperation and unified services with other governmental agencies, especially the county. And as I've said throughout the campaign, I want to make Huntington more attractive, more affordable, and more accommodating.
Thank you. Question number 2, then we'll start with Mr. Strick. What makes Huntington a place where you want to live? Are there challenges you would need to address as mayor that contribute to making Huntington a less desirable place to live?
Thank you, Jeremy. My wife and I made Huntington our home after college because we saw an opportunity to help Huntington adapt and grow as a city that we can all be proud of. And we've come to love this place because of the people that are here. It's not the geography, it's the people. From the north side to the south side, and from the east end to the west developments. Leaders made room at the table for us, and we learned a lot because of having those leadership opportunities, even at young ages. And Huntington, like many communities, has taken body blow after body blow due to global changes in our economy. But we're still here, and we're still fighting. And as mayor, I'll make sure that we keep fighting against poverty and addiction, against ignorance and small-mindedness. I'll make sure we're fighting for good-paying jobs and decent homes, for a good education for all of our children, and for investing in all the parts of Huntington, not just the parts that are most visible to us. We're proud to live south of the river, and I'm proud to represent the East End on City Council. I studied in college on the north side of town. My wife worked over here at Victory Noll Center on the west end of town. We're all in this together, and I'll be a mayor that walks the walk on that talk.
Thank you. Mr. Buzzard?
The best part about Huntington, we had a couple of kids, they call them the Gulf of Monopoly kids, and we built a cheese factory down in Warren. Commissioners are pretty involved with a $9 million expansion down there. But had a young couple come into Huntington, Matt and Ashley, and they're from Connecticut, and talked to them at the bike shop. And I said, how do you like Huntington? And she got the biggest grin on her face, and she smiled, and she says, you know, I love Huntington. She says, my husband and I bought a house up on my boyfriend and I bought a house on North Guilford Street. It's the nicest house I've ever lived in my life. It's nicer than my parents' house. It's more than I ever thought we could have. He says, and it's cheap. And we've got money, we can go out and do things. And people are very friendly. She said, I can't believe how nice people are. People I don't even know speak to me. And that's what's good about Huntington. That's the best part about Huntington. But as I look around Huntington, the neighborhood that I live in is not the same as I grew up in. You know, quite honestly, Huntington looks tired. And there's some rundown areas that back when I was growing up were quite nice. And I'd like to see that revitalized. I think we can do that. But we need to do that, like I said, we need to lower our tax rate and make the city more affordable, more attractive to these young families. And that includes taxes and utilities. We are in dire need of market rate apartments that aren't Section 8 housing, but market rate apartments, and some housing development. I have talked with a couple different developers that have plans for major developments here in Huntington, and I'm excited about the opportunities that lie ahead. So we have challenges, but there's a lot to be proud of, and there's a lot of good people here, and that's what I'm proud to call Huntington.
Thank you, Mr. Buzzard.
I like the friendly hometown feeling that you get, how the community comes together in a time of need. Someone has cancer, people come together. We have a gentleman who passed away in a car accident. My daughter organized a fundraiser. Everybody came together to raise money for the family. That's what I like about Huntington. Some of the challenges that we need to address is the budget, the taxes, and bringing industries into the community. We need things for our children to do. We need places to shop. We don't have, you have Walmarts. We need more places to shop in the community and more restaurants. Huntington is just a place that I've lived for over 45 years. And I want to improve the community. That's why I like Huntington.
Thank you. Question number 3, and Mr. Buzzard, we'll start with you. There are good, well-paying jobs available in Huntington that are not filled. What is your understanding of the reasons for the situation, and what is your plan to remedy it?
Well, the workforce is very competitive right now, with unemployment being less than 4% in most of Indiana. And that isn't a problem that's just specific to Huntington, but it's also the entire Midwest, and for a large part, the entire country. One of the biggest challenges that I've run into when I talk to employers is we need somebody that can pass a drug test, and that's tough, believe it or not. And we need somebody that's willing to show up every day, every day. There are many good paying jobs do require training. We have some great facilities here. The Learning Center, the Wood Technical School at the high schools is a fantastic resource. They work in conjunction with Ivy Tech, so you can get training, secondary training, skilled training. We have jobs that are available at most every employer for over $20 an hour if they can get people to pass that drug test and show up for work. But you have to be able to work, and you have to be able to show up and maybe start at an entry level and work your way up through the ladder. But I tell my staff every day, I appreciate my help. I appreciate my people, not just down at the courthouse, but at the bike shop too. I hire them and I bring them in to solve problems. And you need to give them that opportunity and leverage or leeway to get the job done, because good employees are hard to find, and once you find them, it's important to keep them.
Thank you. Ms. Hiles?
I agree, there are decent paying jobs here in town. However, going off of what Mr. Buzzard said, with the opioid epidemic we are facing, it's hard for individuals to pass the drug screens. Most of them have low work ethics and values. We do need to offer more resources, educational options, and commit with the employers to see where they're struggling, where we can help them get their jobs. Thank you.
Well, to build on what they've said, and just to add to it a little bit, from what employers have told me, there are 2 things that are keeping these positions open. And the first is, as noted, a mismatch with our current workforce, because people don't have the right certifications for those positions. And the Learning Center is a great tool for that. That's a great example of collaboration between various government entities and private parties to make sure that we're investing in the folks that live in this community and putting tax dollars to work for them so they can make an improvement in their own lives. The other issue, though, is that there are people who don't want to live here, and we need to be attracting them. Those employers have trouble attracting employees that want to make Huntington their home, and they've told us the sorts of things they want us to be invested in to make that happen. And this is the sort that's going to create a return on our investment. It's taking care of our infrastructure. It's growing local businesses that make this the place you want to stay, because Most towns have a McDonald's and an Applebee's. It's the local mom and pop shops that make a place unique and worth living in. Improving the housing options, and that's one reason why I'm proud of the city's redevelopment of the downtown United Brethren block, because as we talk about gentrifying parts of the community, creating 35 market rate apartments down there for young professionals to live in and rent at a market rate, that's a great win for our city. That building was an eyesore. It was a rough place for the folks who lived there for years. It wasn't right for them to live there, and it wasn't right for it to decay in front of the courthouse. We took care of it with a private-public partnership, and that's going to build dividends for our community. It's going to create the living space and the housing options that we all have identified as a need in our community, and it's a great thing. We need to continue taking care of our public spaces and improving the look of the city. That much is true. In fact, I think it's high time, too, that we listen to the residents who say that they want us to look into a community pool. And whether that community pool is something that's owned and operated by the city is different from actually finding a way to make it happen. Maybe it's a private investment, but there are various ways that we can solve that problem. We need to look at it, and we need to listen to our residents who want to see that as a place for their children and grandchildren to play at and enjoy in our community. Other cities in the area have figured out how to do it.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Ms. Hiles. You, in your previous answer, addressed the opioid crisis. How would you address the challenge of persons stuck in unemployment due to addiction or mental illness?
Well, this is something I'm very passionate about. I'm an addiction counselor. I work with my patients daily on the importance of employment. I provide them with encouragement and support, resources on getting their GED, and I teach them how to fill out their application and submit their resume. You'd be surprised of the individuals who suffer from addiction or mental health, as they are from every walk of life. You need to know that they are loved and they have the ability to follow their dreams. I can guarantee that this has affected every person in this room today, either by a family member, a friend, or a neighbor. This disease does not discriminate. As a community, we need to be compassionate and educated. Get strong and consistent with them, provide resources and treatment options such as the Place of Grace and the Harmony Home. We need to collaborate with judges and attorneys, doctors, police, fire, and the state of Indiana to pass what's called a Casey's Law. We need to provide more education in the schools, and most of all, we need to keep our home of Huntington safe. This is very passionate of mine. We have this big problem. But we can't close our eyes to it. We have to address it. We have to address it head on. Thank you.
It's a great answer, Mrs. Hiles. Thank you. We didn't get here because of past mayors, and no mayor is going to solve this problem on their own for us. It's something that requires all the parts of our community working together, whether they be government entities or nonprofits, social service sector. Everyone needs to pull together on this. I think that the strength of a community is best measured by how it takes care of those who are on the edges of its prosperity. And as Mrs. Hiles noted, groups like Place of Grace, Love in the Name of Christ, and local churches, they can support people that are in difficult situations to provide them the support so they can make changes in their life and they can heal broken relationships in their life. At the same time, licensed and trained professionals at Bowen Center or Pathfinder Services can provide additional resources that help people of all ages and ability enjoy access to the community that the rest of us enjoy. Every human being has inherent dignity, and our life together as a community needs to reflect that value. It also means allowing the person that is struggling to participate in solving and overcoming the problems he or she is facing. We can't disrespect people by doing things for them that they can do for themselves, but we do need to come alongside of them and open the doors that they can't open on their own so that they can become part of the solution to the problems that they're facing. In addition to that, we need to be lobbying our state and federal representatives to go after the pharmaceutical companies and medical professionals that led to this addiction crisis. It was exploitation of people, it was exploitation of people's pain, and those companies do not deserve to profit from the suffering of our communities.
Okay. To add to what Richard said about going after the pharmaceutical companies, the county commissioners have signed on to a lawsuit with the state of Indiana to do just that, and we are working on that. But as they both have said, I don't think there's not a magic cure. If there was one and I had it, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be selling it all over the United States because we're all facing the same problem. We've got a jail overcrowding problem, I can tell you as commissioner. Our jail was built in 1985 to house 100 inmates, and by DOC standards it should hold 80. And this week we're over 140. We're in dire need of space. We spend a lot of money on crime, and with probation, with the judges, with the court system. And if we could channel that money back into the community, we would have more money than we know what to do with for the city, for the schools, for everybody. We need to work with the public sector. There's a public sector, the private sector, there's nonprofits, but most importantly, I'll touch a little bit on the personal sector, that you as an individual. From the county court system, Jeremy, you're very familiar with it. We've got several departments that help with this type of problem. Probation, community corrections, we have drug court for alternative sentencing, counseling services at the jail, and there are AA meetings that are free to anybody that wants to go. They don't charge. The private sector, there's healthcare, there's insurance, there's the Bowen Center that can help. We have the nonprofits, as they mentioned, the Dream Center, Place of Grace. I've talked to Senator Zay about this, and they have a drug task force in Whitley County, Wabash County, and Grant County. And the truth of the matter is we don't have a line item in the budget for drug counseling or mental health in the city or the county budget. But what you can do is act as a facilitator to bring these players together, sit down on a regular basis, monthly or quarterly, and attack it from all angles. Andy's been really successful doing this in other counties.
Thank you. Next question, then we'll start with Mr. Strick. There are empty buildings in the downtown area. What is your plan to attract new businesses to our downtown area into the new industrial park?
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Well, there's two different items here. I think that downtown, which is significantly stronger and cleaner than when I first moved here, is best served by connecting local people that want to own a business with mentors from SCORE and other groups that want to help them develop a business plan, and local investors that want to help them see their start. There's lots of folks who have an idea for running a business or opening a business, but succeeding in business is hard work. And as a result, we need folks who can come alongside of them to help them start strong and finish well. I think that this is also something that there can be programs offered in our community for helping to train a service culture as well. Because one of the major issues that you hear from folks in the restaurant industry around here is it's hard to find good help at this point. It's a very competitive work environment. So I think cooperatively working together with training programs will help those businesses all thrive and succeed. As far as the industrial park that the Federers Administration acquired, 187 acres on the west end of town, it's going to need infrastructure investments. We're going to make sure that we have to partner with HQ and others to attract new industrial employers that pay well in those areas. And we need to start thinking about not just the jobs of today that pay well, but what are the jobs of tomorrow? We have entire new industries because of technological innovation that we can be on the front edge of. Google just opened a data center in Council Bluffs, Iowa. That's about twice the population of Huntington County. These companies are looking for places where they can invest and they can bring in jobs. We also need to recognize that with cybersecurity being a growing issue, we just experienced that in the spring with an attack that our community suffered. There's an opportunity for us to begin training our young people to code at a young age. We're all frustrated with how much time they spend on screens. We might as well teach them how to make that profitable. So if we can teach them how to code, they can start at a young age and they can come all the way up through with their certifications, and they can start coding here in Huntington. They don't need to move to Silicon Valley to get those jobs. The wonder of the technology that we have is they can have those jobs here. And we can continue to invest in them that way, and they will stay around, and they will continue to lead this community forward beyond our years.
Thank you, Mr. Strick. Mr. Buzzard?
As far as the empty buildings in downtown, talking to the business owners downtown, I'd like to work with them to get permits for special events, that they will want to bring people into the downtown area. I think it's important for anyone to relax those permits a little bit and work with the merchants a little better. And if they've got ideas, listen to them, sit down, talk to them, and see how we can make it work. retail environment's tough, and I can tell you that firsthand as a business owner myself. I work to create an environment that is business friendly for our retailers downtown. I want to make it fun, I want to make it vibrant, and if they've got an idea on how to do that, I'll work with them any way I can to make that happen. Restaurants, entertainment centers, and all those things, that's all a direct result of a disposable income and a thriving economy. So these other things that we talked about, lowering the tax rate, bringing people and jobs back into town, will feed that. As far as industrial development in River Fork Industrial Park, I've been a proponent of spending TIF dollars and seeded dollars for projects that do put the infrastructure in place and do provide economic development. And I'd allocate those dollars, set those aside specifically for that, to put in lift stations, roads, water towers, so we can bring those industries in.
Thank you. Ms. Hiles?
I think we need to collaborate with the Northeast Indiana Partnership, Indiana Landmarks, Stellar Community Partnership, and we need to develop an in-house comprehensive plan that provides words for goals. That is a good idea. Wabash has done it, and they are flourishing over there in their downtown area. So this is something that we really need to look into. Thank you.
Next question will begin with Mr. Buzzard. Do you see Huntington as part of the Northeast Indiana Partnership? Why or why not?
You know, we're definitely a part of it. There are many programs, specifically and most importantly funding programs, that come through the Northeast Regional Partnership from the state. I believe in a regional approach in many aspects. As county commissioner, I can tell you we've worked with Allen, Wabash, and Wells. Whitley counties have been really helpful, not just industrially, but in the area of tourism as well. Tourism is a huge opportunity and a huge part of our economy. I just went up to a ribbon cutting today for an expansion of a Tooheys winery, and what they've been able to do up there is phenomenal. All part of that regionalization. The other thing I want to say as far as the regional partnership, and I was involved firsthand, is the 900 North project. It was a $30 million project for the corridor between GM and Roanoke. Our portion of that was $6 million, and we have about $800,000 a year to put into roads and highways. It's hard to put in $6 million when you have a county budget of $700,000. It would take every dime we had for 7 years for that 3-mile stretch. But working with the regional partnership, working with the commissioners in Allen County, working with Senator David Long and Travis Holdman, we were able to get the funding for that entire project. The entire $30 million was done through the state of Indiana, and not a dime had to come out of the county coffers. It took a lot of work, took a lot of badgering, took a lot of effort, but we were able to get that done. So yeah, I'm all for it, and I want to retain our identity as Huntington, as the community in Huntington County, the city of Huntington. But if we can work with those other areas, absolutely, it's a benefit for all of us.
Thank you. Ms. Hiles?
As I said before in the last question, I do believe that working with the Northeast Indiana Partnership is a great opportunity to utilize. It enhance and improve our quality of life, and it will offer great incentives and for businesses to invest in us. Thank you.
Do I see Huntington as part of the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership? Well, it depends on the leadership that the city elects on November 5th. Because, yeah, we're geographically located in Northeast Indiana. That's a simple matter of fact. But partnership with the regional cities requires leadership that's on board with where the region is heading. And there are records and there are practices of each of us that are running here. And you as voters need to look into those records. When we talk about these things, we're talking about bringing in new families. We're talking about investing in public spaces like the United Brethren redevelopment project downtown. We're talking about the trails throughout the city. Those are things that saw regional partnership money involved with those things. Those are things that have received a lot of criticism over the course of this campaign. And so it's interesting to hear that we're all for what the region is all for. And I'm glad to hear that. I hope that whomever is elected is sincerely going to follow through on those things and partnering with those initiatives. But it means showing up to the meetings, especially the ones that we're already expected to be at. and acting like a leader that's going to represent us well at those meetings. If I'm elected, I look forward to continued partnership throughout the region, because that's one of the ways that we're going to succeed as a community.
Thank you. The next question then, we'll start with Ms. Hiles. Is it important for the health and vitality of the Huntington community to have a diverse population? If so, how would you help create it?
Yes, I believe it is important to have a diverse population. And being an all-inclusive community creates innovation. It opens the language barriers to businesses who want to expand overseas. It grows a great pool for employees to embrace diversity and attract a wider range of qualified candidates for jobs. It improves employees' performance because they feel more comfortable and happy in the environment where inclusion is priority. We need to advertise that we are an all-inclusive community and reach out to the diverse population and ask how we can make them feel welcome in our city. I asked this question to an employee, or a lady who works where I work, and I did not know she was from Huntington, and I asked her this question if she felt like she belonged in our community, and she said she did not. She is from a different culture, but she says that she does not feel welcome in our community. This is something that we need to make them feel welcome into our community and invite them in. Thank you.
Well, it is vital to our health as a community that we welcome people to our community that don't look like us and might not think like us. But at the same time, we recognize, and I'm a former pastor, churches aren't exactly known for change. Change is difficult for all of us, and it's scary for some of us. I'm a bridge builder that tries to help people work together towards a shared goal. And at the end of the day, people are people. And the folks that are coming to our community, the folks who are already in our community, both want a better future for their children. The challenge is meeting people where they are and taking the next step together. And that is a slow process that requires patience, listening well, and intentionality. Slow cannot be confused with not pursuing it. It means giving people the time they need to accommodate and work through things. I'm committed to serving our current population well while working to become a more welcoming community through community dialogues and dinners. Because nothing brings people together like the dinner table. And for a lot of us, the first time we experienced another culture or somebody who didn't look like us, it was because we went to a restaurant that had a cuisine that wasn't served at McDonald's.
Yes, diversity has become an extremely popular buzzword recently. And it's a many-faceted, and it touches race, religion, cultures, and politics. I think it's important that we welcome and embrace those differences. And above all, to be kind and respectful. If you saw the clip of Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush this week, I thought that was fantastic. And it's something that we should strive for. I also know that it's easier said than done. Throughout the course of this campaign, I've been accused of many things by some people that have never worked with me, never had a talk with me, never met me. And that's sad, and we can do better. We can do much better. I'll say that having a diversity statement is great, but it's not the answer. And reading a proclamation and holding a rally is fine, but government at any level cannot and should not dictate or control what people feel in their heart or think. As a conservative Catholic, I'll tell you that not everybody agrees with me in my religion or my politics. But it's okay to be different. You can disagree without being disagreeable. Father Ron told me that 1,000 times, and it was a great lesson. He said, focus, we agree on 80%. Focus on what you agree on, not the 20% you disagree on. If I'm mayor, I'm going to encourage my staff and my administration to treat everybody fair, to be considerate to everyone, each individual and every group.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Strick. Any community with a future needs to retain its youth. What is needed in Huntington to attract and retain a youthful presence and commitment to the city?
Thank you, Mr. Nix. If you want to attract young people, if you want to keep your children and grandchildren here, you need to show them that there's an opportunity for them to succeed here, and there's an opportunity for them to make a difference. That's what this generation is after. If you listen to them and ask them, they've got high aspirations, and they are eager to work when they're shown an opportunity that's worth investing in. Young people are our present future, and we need to make room at the table for them now to have a voice in the future of this city. That's what Pat Horho did and what Gary Newton did for both my wife and myself, respectively. That's what we're doing for the next crop of young leaders already in Huntington through a professional networking group and recruiting friends from around the country and around the region to fill job openings that are here in Huntington. At St. Peter's First Community Church, where I served for 8 years as the lead pastor, having a young pastor helped us attract young families. It worked well enough that they decided to roll the dice on another young pastor after I stepped down. Maybe electing a younger mayor will do the same thing for Huntington.
Well, just as the job market is competitive, it's the same thing with the youth. They're going to go, like Richard said, where opportunity presents itself. When I was 18 years old, I think it's important to remember, in 1976, the economy was pretty tough. Jobs weren't plentiful. We were able to bring some employers into the new industrial park at that time, and I was fortunate enough to get a job there. And what that job does is create skill sets and give you an opportunity, and so you can learn. I did not go to school and get a degree. I worked my way up and into management through working through the system. And then that opportunity spins off opportunity on out and opportunity. We've seen that. I'll give you great examples of the wheel industry here in Huntington. One wheel company spawned off about 4 others. And there's been a lot of people learn that trade and be very successful in that business. But to bringing those families back in there, you got to have the job market, and they have to be able to find employment. They want to feel safe. They want to be able to afford a home. They want to feel safe in their community, and they want to be connected, whether that's through friends or family. But I think that goes a long way. My son was like that. He went to IU, and he was never coming back, ever. And he was going to go to New York or California, and as he worked through college, he got down to, well, maybe Cincinnati or St. Louis or Chicago. And then after he'd spent a couple years in Bloomington, he came home, and started his own business here. It was a connection. He was home. He was tied to that. So that goes a long way as well. And to build those strong relationships with your kids and with your families, you can't replace them.
Ms. Hiles?
I've had several conversations with the youth and some young adults and asked them what they would like to have in Huntington. All the responses were saying that they would like a centralized community center with art and music programs that's available. They would like to see Lake Claire open up for the summer swimming, or even have a community swimming pool. Have a place to go camping, maybe a putt-putt golf course. There's many options in Huntington that we can put in here for the youth. By doing this, we need to collaborate with the county trustee, businesses and nonprofits to work together as a community to maybe make this happen for our young children. Right now, we have nothing for them to do, so they're out vandalizing houses, vandalizing businesses. We need to provide something that's safe, centralized, that they can do their artwork, music, and just be active. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now it's about 7:15, so as I indicated at the beginning, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back and include some of your questions and the questions to the candidates as well. So all the comments so far are about how you can't hear the questions I'm asking or some of the answers. So I'll try to do better this half. If any of you can't hear the questions I ask, just raise your hand, and I'll try to make sure I say it directly into the microphone. Sorry about that. So we're going to start back. It's Mr. Buzzard's turn to answer this next question first. What background do you have to oversee a $25 million budget, and what would be your priorities in stewarding those funds?
My wife likes shoes. I'm sorry. No, I have worked in management for 2 Fortune 500 companies, the Melville Corporation and Ecolab. I've also owned 2 of my own businesses since 2003, and I've worked in city and county government for over 13 years. County General's budget is $13 million. The Commissioner's budget combined with departments that we oversee, IT, Department of Community Development, our custodial staff, buildings, and the highway amounts to $11 million. I'm very familiar with the budgeting process, managing people, assets, and money. If I'm elected, I'll manage the city just as I have a commissioner, focusing on the basics of what local government does. Public safety, ensuring that our citizens are safe and protected. Parks and streets. I'm a firm believer, and I've talked to a lot of people in the community. I live on Warren Street, it's a brick street. I moved here because it was a brick street. I want to keep it a brick street. I'm a firm believer in keeping what is as is. So we'll keep brick, we'll keep concrete, and we'll pave what we have with asphalt that is asphalt. I said that I want to take the utilities and take more work back into the utility departments to help us control the cost. And then for economic development, I would focus on using CEDA and TIF monies on projects that would create jobs, broaden our tax base, and replace and expand infrastructure.
Ms. Hiles?
Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
I ran a small business here in Huntington for 10 years, and I know what it takes to make payroll and keep a business running. Most of the $25 million budget is already obligated to salaries and outstanding debt obligations. According to the Indiana Gateway of yesterday, our outstanding debt is over $80 million. However, I believe some debt is good as long as there is a return. I keep hearing about the projects that we would have bring businesses and increase population, although I have not seen this. I understand that we need to spend money in order to grow, but the money that is spent needs to be on things that we actually need to bring revenue back into the city. We used to have several options for summer swimming activities like swimming and camping at Lake Claire and Huntington Reservoir. I will never forget what Mayor Abbott told me. He said when he was younger, he used to go swing dancing at the old central school. This is the kind of things that we need to bring back into the community. Thank you.
The size of the budget isn't the issue. It's the principles and the team that's helping you steward it. And I learned that at the team with St. Peter's First Community Church by taking care of our building and investing in our services that we provided in the community. We paid cash to take care of our building. We kept it on a maintenance plan. We took care of things ahead of schedule so that we could be ready to deal with it. And we would have only bonded in the case of emergency. And that's exactly what the city of Huntington has done. The majority of the debt bonds that we have are because of the state mandated projects that we've had to do for infrastructure. And that is a scheduled order that we have with the state of Indiana, and whomever is elected mayor on November 5th will have to prioritize in the spring of 2020, beginning to plan the final 3 projects in that order. If we get behind schedule on those, the state of Indiana shows up at our doorstep or summons us to theirs, and they don't have any more carrots. It's only a stick. And that means that we will be paying fines and fees instead of servicing debt that actually gets us the infrastructure fixed. If the state sees us not moving on it at all, eventually they will step in and do the project, and they will not try to save costs for us in this. They will hand us the bill. The same principles that guide our much smaller household budgets are the same things that need to guide a city budget. Identifying priorities, knowing how much money is coming in, and planning the money that's going out. Paying down our debt is good and necessary, but knowing when it is wise and necessary to take on debt as an investment as well. We're paying off our last student loan this December, my wife and I, and we're going to celebrate that. We also took out a reasonable mortgage through a local bank 2 years ago. Debt serves its purpose, but you need to make sure it's working for you and not the other way around. Now, as a mayor, I'd prioritize paving the streets while we're replacing the pipes beneath them, but if we're talking about wants and needs, I have a hard time justifying to the residents of the East End why we should be taking money that should be paving their streets to pay for brick streets that cost twice as much as asphalt. Now, I do believe in offering a fair deal to the residents who benefit from those brick streets. If you want brick streets, you should raise the difference rather than expecting the other taxpayers to pay for that extra cost for your street. Thank you, Mr. Strick.
Next question then will begin with Ms. Hiles. Who would you foresee becoming part of your team, and what entities would you hope to collaborate or partner with as mayor?
Well, can y'all hear me now? Still hear me? No?
Just hold it close. It's on. Swallow it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I would have qualified members working with me, individuals who are loyal, show integrity, and have moral compass and good work ethics. I would welcome any organization or person willing to help our community grow and prosper. Thank you.
If I'm elected on November 5th, leading up to day one on January 1, we'll be hiring any openings for those that choose to leave from their current positions. As for the remaining team, I think it's impossible to assess employees from a distance. Year one, everyone will remain in their current roles so that we can learn how to work together and we can assess where the strengths and weaknesses are in the team and we can staff appropriately in light of that information. After that, I'll have a sense of who fits in their current role and who might be better served somewhere else, whether that's on or off of the city's payroll. I look for honest, hard-working employees that do their job and don't get in the way of others getting their job done. And part of my current work with Love in the Name of Christ is I travel around the country helping local affiliates staff those affiliates. I teach and train effective hiring processes. I teach accountability, and I teach equipping people with the skills they need to do the job you've hired them to do. Those are the same principles that I would see operating down at City Hall to make sure that we are serving the city to the best of our ability.
The who is part of my administration. I really haven't determined yet, and I'm not going to say who that might be tonight. I have several people in mind. I've been involved in local government for a long time, and I have friends and acquaintances that I respect and admire and would love to have on my team. If I win in November, we'll sit down and get really serious in the next 2 or 3 weeks after that to put that team together. As far as the entities that I would partner with, many of them are the same ones I partner with as county commissioner. 3 I want to bear mentioning is the Youth Services Bureau, the Veterans Office, and the Council on Aging, or the Senior Center. All those 3 agencies were funded by the city, and that was pulled about 2 administrations ago because of budgetary reasons. I would make sure that we start funding those again in some fashion because I think they are important. The Youth Services Bureau does an outstanding job with our children. Senior Center is looking more attractive to me every day. But it serves a huge portion of our community. And the Chamber of Commerce is another one that was funded with money to support Heritage Days. It was a celebration of our community, and I'd reinstate that. Looking further than that, our Veteran Service Offices, Huntington Parkview Foundation, Chamber of Commerce, HQ, Historic Review Board, Huntington Alert, United Way. The main thing we work with is the nonprofits. You talk about public-private partnership, and nonprofits are a huge part of our community. It's a shame that we have to rely on them so much. I wish we didn't have to, but I'm glad they're there when they're needed.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to some community questions, and we'll start with Mr. Strick. How do you plan to draw our community closer together through your communication or public forums?
One of my favorite parts of campaigning is canvassing. The opportunity to go to different neighborhoods in this community and meet the folks who call that place home. And with each of those encounters, doesn't matter what sign is in their yard, I'm committed to listening to them and receiving the feedback and sometimes the tongue lashing, because there's always folks who don't agree with everything you did. But that's something that I think needs to continue. A mayor needs to be visible in all sectors of the city, not just on Main Street, but on the main streets and all the side streets. Being around in the neighborhoods, being available to folks, being accessible to the communities that they call home. It's really easy to kind of get lost in your own bubble. I also think a top priority needs to be a redevelopment of the city's website. Currently, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to use that website to find information. It is a burden, not a tool. And so we need to develop a website using modern interfaces so that it is user-friendly and it is easy to find information that you deserve as taxpayers. With that, we also want to make sure that there's upgrades in communication, both internally and externally. It is inexcusable for employees within the city to not know what the city is doing on different projects or how things are coordinated. We can do better at that, and we will do better at that. Thank you.
Mr. Buzzard?
Can you hear me that question one more time?
Yes. How do you plan to draw our community closer together through your communication or public forums?
Well, I'm looking forward to having the opportunity serving as mayor and being full-time. I do it now as commissioner, but I also have my own business I run, and you're spread really thin. Always, and you have my family too, so you're always making a decision. Is it family? Is it your business, or is it county commissioner? Being mayor, when you have a full-time and availability to do that, I'm really looking forward to. I spend a lot of time walking neighborhoods, talking to people, being in and among them, and that is, like Richard said, the best part of campaigning, because you get out and you talk to them. I also spend a lot of time with our business and industry. Mark Wickersham goes around monthly, and he tries to do one every month, and he goes out and visits with him, try to make as many as I can, but that would be a regular cycle that I would go through and sit down and talk to them. What do they need? What do they want? What works? What doesn't work? What can the city do to help them? And it's the same thing in the neighborhoods. One thing I would implement, I really want to pursue, I think is a great idea. They do it in Fort Wayne and some other communities as a neighborhood policing system. So you assign a policeman to go out in the neighborhood. It's a small town. We know everybody. I mean, and I think it's important that kids know who the policemen are and policemen know who the kids are and build that relationship with them. They shouldn't be afraid of them. They shouldn't be intimidated by them. And I think that would go a long way.
Well, let's see. I think we should have open communication. The mayor's office should not just be open from 8 to 5. We should have a non-traditional hours of people who do work in the evenings, days. We should be available all times. If you guys have any questions, you should be able to come and talk with the mayor. I have not done much campaigning out in the community because I have 2 jobs. So me coming knocking door to door has not been something that I have been able to do. I have tried to get out there, but I want to make sure everybody knows that you have a voice and you are being heard, and if you contact me, I will get back with you as soon as I can. But it has to be an open door policy. We have to be able to communicate, and you guys have to be able to be heard of what your wishes and wants are. Thank you.
Next question then, we'll start with Mr. Buzzard. What role do you see public art and the arts in general playing in a community like Huntington?
It's a great asset to the community for that. And if we can support them in any way, I think it's important that we do. Finding the money to help with that isn't easy. But what we try to do with county commissioners is we work with any organization. The Chalk Walk is one that's really taken off, and Pam Burris does a phenomenal job of bringing artists into downtown and doing that. In Roanoke, they have this weekend we're having a Renaissance Festival downtown. They have a jewelry art festival. They bring in a lot of people through that, and there's a lot of opportunities that we can work on for Huntington as well.
Hiles?
I believe that art program, music program, all that is a very good investment for Huntington. The children, university would love to be able to come out and participate in some kind of activity or an art program, or like the inner city of Fort Wayne. I have a friend who works there. She loves to be able to go there and show them different activities that they are able to do. Huntington just doesn't have that ability right now. Mr. Buzzard said something about the finances. Something like this could be reached out to the community, and there should be local support. We could go to businesses and ask businesses and nonprofits there's a lot of opportunities to bring that to Huntington, and I think it would be a good asset for us.
One of my favorite memories is as a very young child watching Bob Ross with my dad. And my dad he is a creative, artistic man who takes up a new hobby every other week and masters it and then moves on to the next thing. And I remember learning to paint with him and sketch and draw, and those are things that stayed with me for a long time until I got too busy, and I hope to get back to them. But that's the role of public art, and that's the role of art in the community. I am proud as a member of the Pathfinder Board and as a member of City Council that we are investing in a community art center right in downtown Huntington. And so as we talk about an arts program being available for young people in our community, we're doing that. And we're hoping that that's going to open here even yet this winter, if not the spring of this next year. And that's going to be a wonderful asset to our community. We have so many talented artists. I'm looking at one of them right now that's in our community, and he has murals in other cities. Why don't we have murals from him in downtown Huntington? When we think about some of the buildings that are eyesores for us, maybe we don't have the funds right now to remediate those or tear those down. Let's put a mural on them. Let's distract from the ugliness of it. Let's incorporate the ugliness into a new creative art expression. When we talk about drug addiction, or we talk about youth and just the emotions and the challenges of growing up, art is very therapeutic. It is very healing. Having those arts programs helps us in all facets of our community's life. It's real easy to sacrifice art, but we lose so much when we do. It needs to be a priority for us, and it will be a priority for my administration.
Ms. Hiles, next question will begin with you. What are your plans for the homeless individuals and families in Huntington?
The homeless.
Homeless.
I deal with this at work every day. Huntington doesn't have that many opportunities for homeless people to go to. There's a few, but not very many. I believe that we need to open up a shelter. I don't want to say a shelter, like a home that these individuals can go to. Just because they lose their job does not mean they're on drugs, does not mean that, they're going to steal from you or whatever. They're people that's just down on their luck. We need to provide a safe environment for them and their children. So if I'm the mayor, that's one priority that we will address, and I will implement something in the downtown area for the homeless people that we have in our community.
As a pastor in our community, this was something, and this was a group of folks that I interacted with on a regular basis. And unfortunately, because of being on the national staff of Love the Name of Christ, I'm not up to speed with the conversation in our community. And if you're the individual who reached out to me with this question, I'm waiting to get with you. I don't know if you got my email or not, but we need to connect about this, because when we think about this, it's a unique situation in a community like Huntington, because we don't have the large numbers to justify a massive infrastructure for it. But there's enough that we need to do something about it. And I think that it requires creative approaches within our community, including individuals willing to open up their homes with supports around them. We also need to think about this as a pipeline and not just a situational moment. So it's not just enough that we have a place for them to stay for the night or a motel that we rent out for them. But we need to think about transitional housing and supports that we used to have in the community but went away for lack of funding. And then what does it look like to transition those folks to independent living as much as they're able to, with home ownership training or through even just the ability to maintain and hold down work and a rental, because not everybody needs or wants to be a homeowner. And we need to have that option available to them too. It shouldn't be a threat to their health or safety if they're renting an apartment. We need to make sure there's good housing stock available for them. But that's, again, similar to opioids. That's something that all sectors in the community need to coordinate together to work with.
This a couple of weeks ago, I asked, we were in a commissioners meeting, and we had the community corrections people in, and we had the drug court coordinator, Aaron Wiley, in, and we had the health department in, and I asked him about that, because as sitting as commissioner, I don't see homeless people. And I asked him, I said, do we have a problem? He said, we definitely have a problem. He said, what it mostly is, it's not homeless people living on the streets of Huntington. It's transients going from house to house to house to house, to friend, to family, and back and forth. And they're sleeping on couches, they're sleeping in the basement, sometimes sleeping in cars in someplace house. So I asked them, I said, so what would be the biggest thing we could do? And they said, well, if we could get a house, especially a men's house, a home, could we get that? And we have tax sale properties come up all the time that we could utilize for that. At really no charge to them. We just have to put the agency in place to oversee that. And there's several that would be more than willing to do that, but the other issue is permitting. We've got to get them permitted. We've got to get the house up to code. We've got to have that. And I think it's definitely something that I would pursue and look into, because for men it absolutely is a need, but for the general population, and I think it's something that we have to do as well.
Mr. Strick, next question, we'll start with you. Do you plan to lower taxes? And if you do, what specific steps will you take to do so?
You may remember that a few years ago, the voters of the state of Indiana, in their collective wisdom, passed a constitutional amendment. And that amendment caps property taxes at 1%, 2%, and 3%. 1% for residential, 2% for agricultural, 3% for commercial. And when we talk about the city's tax rate, and we talk about some of the things that are involved with that, for you as a resident, your tax bill goes up to 1% of your assessed value, and that's it. After that, there's a circuit breaker kicks in, and you don't pay the difference. That's something that all the entities within our local government have to cooperate together around tax caps and levies to make sure that the resources are moving around to different areas in the community where they're needed. There is a meeting already that coordinates those in our local community. Now, if we want to talk about lowering other taxes, we can look into that. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have to figure out how to pay for the services that you need. If we're talking about adding more in our community and amenities and improving the look of this place, it requires an investment. And when we think about taxes from community to community, the game is the same across the state of Indiana now, thanks to that constitutional change that we voted for and we implemented.
Yeah, to lower the taxes, and Richard's right, we are at that 1% cap, and I think something like 70% of the homes in Huntington are at that 1% tax cap. I think if your home's assessed at more than roughly $70,000, you're paying that 1%. The only way to lower that tax rate is to either cut costs or raise your assessed value. So if you expand that tax bridge, if you can bring people back into Huntington, and if you can gentrify these neighborhoods and take a $20,000 home and help them repair that and make it worth $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 and pay the taxes, it gentrifies the neighborhood, it self-feeds itself, it's a great program. You bring in industry, that's a new tax base. I've always said that I would use TIF money to concentrate on industry attraction, on projects that raise that assessed value, create jobs, or hopefully both. And the other thing about cutting taxes, and I've said all along, I think we can do a better job getting away and relying on contractors to do the work because they're making a profit. If you can do that work in-house, they're not making a profit, you can do it at cost. So I'd like to take more and more back on in the city, do as much as we can, supplement it with the contractors. If you get down to the end of the season, then you can work with them to finish jobs or do additional jobs. But the more you do in-house, you can do it more economically if you do it yourself.
To answer this question honestly, since I have not sat in city council or a commissioner, I would have to go look at the books, work with the people that's in the mayor's office, in the city, working for the city, to see how we can reduce our taxes. But without me looking at the books, talking to the employees that are already there, working with the other individuals, I can't give an answer on that.
Next question then, we'll begin with Mr. Buzzard. How do you plan to make Huntington a healthier community, and would you support a plan to connect the existing walking and bike trails and or the Lake Claire Fitness Park?
I don't know, I don't know how you, I don't know, I'd have to see the plan to connect them. I don't know a good way to do that. I'm not a big proponent on the bike trails, I'll be honest with you, and I own a bike shop. I can ride from my shop or from my old house, my house in Huntington, or my old shop any given day, anytime, 20 miles in any direction, and maybe see 4 or 5 cars a night. Some nights, none at all. And I ride 20, 25 miles a night. Bike trails make sense if you have a large population of people and you have a concentration of cars and you've got pedestrians, and that's a bad mix. I get it in Fort Wayne, I get it in Zionsville, I get it in Carmel. We can use side streets and pedal on side streets, and I think there's alternative ways to get around. To make it healthy, I think you just need to get your kids outside. We've got great parks. I hardly ever see them being used. When I was a kid, I mean, that's what we did. We played. We played all day long. We got out of the house. I lived out in the country. I'd have killed to have neighbors to play with. My sisters beat me up too much, you know. I think that's a parental thing, to get kids out and get them exercise. And it's a healthy lifestyle for yourself. You know, like I say, I own a bike shop. I encourage everybody to buy a bike.
Ms. Hiles?
Can you repeat your question, please?
I'll try. How do you plan to make Huntington a healthier community, and would you support a plan to connect the existing walking or biking trails and/or the Lake Claire Fitness Park?
Well, like Mr. Buzzard said, I have to look at the plan to see if it's something that's feasible to be done to connect the walking trails to Lake Claire. There is no sidewalks on Broadway. There's kind of a dangerous place to be connecting for bikers or young kids to be walking. And as far as making it healthier, the problem with this day and age, we have the internet, we have the games, the PlayStations. Kids are more involved in the technology instead of getting out there riding bikes and playing sports. But as far as utilizing Lake Claire, they have a wonderful fitness center out there that maybe we can bring in an American Ninja Warrior program for the kids to be able to, you know, have competition, make it fun for them to be able to get out there. I think if we make it a fun adventure, that people will be willing to take their kids and maybe prosper from that. Thank you.
When we think about the overall health of our community, there's a lot of dimensions to that. There's the physical health that we've been talking about, but access to parks and physical fitness also has a great degree to do with our mental and emotional health as a community as well. And these trails are about transportation as much as they are about recreation or health benefits. There are folks in our community who cannot afford cars or cannot maintain cars for a variety of reasons, and this does allow them safe passage through our city. Now, for myself, I've gotten back into running finally, and I've been using those trails to run around the city. I've nearly been hit twice just since the campaign started by cars. I appreciate the trails because I stay safer that way. At least then they have to take out some posts before they get to me. As far as a plan to connect the city trail system to Lake Claire or to the fitness park at Lake Claire, the city has done its part. There's a trail that runs right to the edge of the city limit. We've done everything we can, and it's a very short connection to cross Broadway over to that side of the line. It's not that hard to do. And it's interesting, again, when we think about trail systems and we hear about, well, these are things that don't belong in our community, it's on the city's comprehensive plan, of which there are folks on this panel whose names are on that plan, and it is on the new county comprehensive plan, which was just issued by our current commissioners. So for us to talk about trails not being necessary, it's interesting it keeps showing up in the plans for the city all the way back to 1965. This community says they want trails. And when we look at the funding that went into those, and the reason why we invested in those were corporate property taxes that were used in those. When we look at those investments, it's because that's what corporate employers said. We can't fill the jobs we have because people don't want to live in our city because they're looking for a quality of life that includes trails. And so this administration, following the city's comprehensive plan and the direction of those employers to solve the problem we've all acknowledged as a reality here, invested in that system that we all have the opportunity to benefit from. And I understand that for many of us, we don't need that trail to ride a bike. We can go out on county roads. But for a young child learning to ride a bike, I don't want them out on roads. I want them to have a safe, accessible place where they can learn to ride. And for those teenagers,
Thank you.
I want them to enjoy that pump track.
One last short question, or hopefully draws a short answer before we do our closing statements. And Ms. Hiles, we'll begin with you. How much time do you plan to dedicate to the job of mayor? Will it be a full-time or a part-time job for you?
It will be a full-time job. It's going to be a full-time job to work with the people that's already in there, just to see how things are ran, to go through the books. Yeah, definitely be a full-time job.
Mr. Strick?
Absolutely. I think we're all in agreement up here that it would be a full-time job, and in the eventuality, if I were to win the election on November 5th, my employer has already been notified that I would have to transition out of my role so that we could plan responsibly for that. So.
Yeah, it's absolutely a full-time job. I'm looking forward to it. I've been involved in city council, county council, and commissioner as a part-time, and I'd love to do it full-time. I'm chomping at the bit to spend every day working for you, working for the city of Huntington.
Each candidate will now get 2 minutes to give some closing remarks.
I have a written question someplace in this hall.
And that brings up a good point. All of the candidates have indicated they're willing to stick around for 15 or 20 minutes afterwards.
I have an important question that is written, but because of what my problems are, I got a piece of paper to be able to write it on, and it just was when you started having questions. So would you please take it?
I don't know where those questions are,
But I
but
said they are in this hall, and the lady who has them knows that she has them.
we'll
It's not her fault that it didn't get there.
We'll look for them, but we'll go ahead
You
and for
don't
the time
have to
being,
look for 'em. Ask her to raise her hand.
Mr. Strick,
She is in this hall. Ask her to raise her hand.
I vote her for mayor.
you guys willing to answer one more question?
You don't have.
Depends on how long we want to stay, I guess. I guess, Mr. Strick, we'll start with you, since I think you were the next one up. What do you see as a way to protect or improve care of the environment? Especially in light of industrial development, and this includes air, water, growing plants, trees, etc.
Thank you for speaking up. I'm glad we got a chance to answer this question. Personally, I've been involved with cleaning up the river because it's one of the most beautiful assets that we have in this community. And that requires us all to roll up our sleeves and take care of our environment, but we need to go beyond that as well. There are things that we can do in each of our households to take better care of our environment. There are things that we can do as a city, including looking at transitions as our economy continues to move towards renewable energies. That's something that's coming. We're going to need to adapt to it. Planting trees is something that we can do that improves the air quality across the entire city. And again, that's something that is already occurring in the current administration with public and private dollars being invested in that. We want to make sure that that remains a priority going forward. That means learning from other communities that are doing it better than us and becoming an example for other communities that need to learn from us on how to do it. And that would be a priority for me. Thank you.
Mr. Buzzard?
One of the things that I think, and I'm glad that we recycle. I'm glad to have recycling available in Huntington. I participated in it when it was voluntary. It takes my wife and I a long time to fill up that big blue bin for recycling, but we do it. And we do it it takes us about 3-4 weeks. But recycling is important for one thing. The biggest issue, I think, was closing the landfill. And that hurt us from not having that landfill available. A lot of trash ends up in the county, on county roads, in people's alleys, and so on and so forth. So we've got to do a better job of cleaning that up. The spring or fall cleanup would be a great way to go. One of the things I'm going to look at if I'm elected, I've talked to several communities that have a transfer station. Since the landfill is closed, to have a transfer station out at the landfill where people could bring their trash and compact it, dump it, and keep it off the county roads and out of neighborhoods and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of things we can do and do better, but I'm all in favor of sitting down and listening to any ideas that anyone might have for improving that environment.
I also agree to keep recycling in Huntington. And keep doing the river cleanups, the roadside cleanups. We also need to save the trees that we have here instead of taking out trees, ripping up trees from people's yards, and etc., and then go and build, planting new trees. To me, that doesn't make much sense. But yeah, bringing back recycling. I'd like to have spring and fall cleanup. I'd like to have that, utilize that, and bring in some. Work with the city and the county on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, each of the candidates will have 2 minutes to give their closing remarks. Mr. Buzzard, I think you're up first.
I won't take 2 minutes. I just want to say thanks again. Thanks to all of you for coming out. Jeremy for emceeing this organization, for the Sisters of having us out. I really appreciate it. Great turnout. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I believe that Huntington is a great community, and I believe parts of the greatest parts of the community are probably sitting in this room. We have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. But I think we can do a lot in the next 4 years to make it even better. As I've outlined tonight, I have some ideas on how we can attract people in, what we can do to gentrify neighborhoods, make our community safer, cleaner, more attractive, more affordable. I think I know I have the most experience of all of us sitting at this table in county government. I think I've got a solid plan on how to make Huntington more affordable, more attractive. And I look forward to November and serving you for the next 4 years.
Ms. Hiles?
I want to thank you guys for listening to me stumble through some of this stuff, and I appreciate your patience. As mayor, I'd like to provide an open door policy, like I said. Work with you, welcome the community involvement, not make unilateral decisions that affect us. Address the outstanding debt, focus on the youth and family, and the opioid addiction. Work towards bringing businesses and jobs back into the community and look into the city's outsourcing. The only thing I can promise is that I will not give myself a raise. I will either cut my pay or donate a portion of the salary back into the city to offset the suitable debt or into a project that the city wants to happen, but I will not increase my pay. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and especially for the sisters for hosting and insisting the questions be heard. And this is what democracy looks like, and it's a lot of fun to be part of it. And so it's great that you're here. It's great that you're getting informed. Huntington faces significant challenges as a small city in a global economy, and we need to move on from intramural sports and get into the real game. The reality is that our competition isn't here in Huntington. We need to set aside differences so we can work together. Our competition is Columbia City, Wabash, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, and in today's economy, London and Beijing. We need leadership that can help us adapt to those challenges by working together to implement a long-range plan. Our community is turning a corner, and we need leadership that's ready to turn that corner too. We need leadership that believes in Huntington and represents all of its residents with wisdom and maturity. Leadership that will do the right thing for Huntington. Leadership that will leave Huntington better at the end of a term than they found it on January 1st of 2020. And leadership that will make all of us proud to call Huntington home. This is Huntington's time. And let's make the most of the opportunity in front of us. My name is Richard Strick, and I'm working to earn your vote for mayor tonight, tomorrow, and every day between now and November 5th.
Thank you all for coming out. As I indicated, each of the candidates said they are willing to stick around for a few minutes and answer any additional questions in case your question was not answered during the course of the evening. Thank you for your patience and attendance, and hopefully all of you will turn out to vote in November of this year. Thank you.